Have you ever wondered what truly changes as we grow older? Not just in our bodies, but in our hearts. Not the wrinkles, not the gray hair, but the way we breathe, the way we walk, the way we sit in silence. Old age carries with it secrets, habits, shaped not by trend but by time. Habits that speak not loudly but truthfully. They aren't taught in books. They arrive slowly like morning light on a quiet porch. And if you listen closely, they might just change the way you live, even now. Today, we open the door to those quiet transformations, and perhaps in their stillness we'll hear something we've long forgotten. If you're ready to discover the wisdom that only time can teach, subscribe and join us on this meaningful path. One, speaking less, embracing silence. More deeply, the quiet that comes with age. There comes a time in life when words become unnecessary, not because there is nothing left to say, but because one has learned that silence often speaks more powerfully than sound ever could. In youth, we speak to prove. We explain, we defend, we declare, sometimes just to fill the void. But as the years roll on, something begins to shift. The desire to be heard fades into the background, and in its place arises a quiet knowing that not everything needs to be said, and not every silence needs to be broken. The elderly are not silent because they are tired. They are silent because they've seen how many words were wasted on things that did not matter. They've learned that some truths are too gentle to be spoken aloud, and some emotions are too sacred to be laid bare in conversation. Silence is not the absence of thought. It is the presence of understanding. Why silence becomes a comfort. From reaction to reflection, in earlier decades, many of us lived in a state of reaction, quick to respond, to argue, to assert. But age teaches us that wisdom is born not in reaction but in reflection. Silence becomes a sanctuary. It offers space to process rather than judge, to feel rather than fix. It allows the mind to settle and the heart to speak softly without interruption. In silence, the noise of the world fades, and what remains is the gentle voice within. A voice so easily drowned out in youth, now given room to echo through the chambers of one's life experience. Choosing peace over proving a point. The elderly no longer seek to win arguments. They seek peace. They have come to understand that convincing someone is far less valuable than preserving one's own serenity. Often, the wisest response is no response at all. Not out of indifference, but out of insight. To hold back a comment, to let a disagreement pass without resistance, to smile and say nothing, these are not signs of weakness. They are signs of someone who no longer needs the validation of being right. Silence as inner repair aging brings not only physical aches, but emotional residues, scars from past losses, regrets, disappointments. Silence is the ointment the soul applies when words no longer heal. There is something sacred about a person who has found peace in stillness, no longer chasing explanations, no longer looking for closure, just quietly stitching together the remaining threads of their story with grace and surrender. The wisdom in saying less. As the years deepen, priorities rearrange themselves. Attention turns inward. The moments that once required narration now require only presence. There is beauty in this transformation, subtle, profound, and often misunderstood. Elders may be mistaken for distant or disengaged. But the truth is, many are simply listening, more than they ever have, not just to others but to life itself, to the movement of time, to the stillness between heartbeats. Their silence is not emptiness. It is an archive. It holds everything they've ever felt, endured, forgiven, and let go of. And from that silence they no longer speak to inform, but to bless. Their few words now carry the weight of decades. To grow old is to speak with the voice of silence. To her gentle truth, what the elderly have discovered is something we all eventually must, that peace is rarely found in noise. The truest conversations happen in the quiet moments, in a lingering gaze, in the warmth of a shared silence, in the understanding that no words are needed to say, "I've lived, I understand, I am at peace." Silence is not withdrawal, it is the fullness of presence. 2. Waking early and living by natural rhythms. The quiet hour. Before the world awakes, there is something sacred about the early morning, when the sky is still dim and the earth has not yet stirred. It is in these moments that many older adults choose to rise, not because they have to, but because their body and perhaps even their soul nudges them gently into the day. Gone are the days of snoozing alarms, of rushing to meet someone else's timeline. In old age, there is no race. The sun rises slowly, and so do they. Waking early is not merely a habit. It is a kind of returning, back to a rhythm that was always natural, always there beneath the noise. In the quiet of dawn, the body and nature finally begin to move in sync again. The older we grow, the more we long to rise with the sky and sleep with the stars. Why the elderly wake early? The body softens into nature's rhythm. As youth fades, so does the artificial urgency of clocks and calendars. The body's internal clock begins to slow down, not as a sign of decline, but as a form of wisdom. It begins to realign itself with the Earth's natural cycles, no longer needing to resist sleep, to push through exhaustion, or to stretch the night beyond its welcome. Elders begin to embrace what once seemed boring, early bedtimes and early awakenings. In the gentle hours of morning, there is no pressure, no demand, just breath and light. This return to rhythm is not regression. It is reconciliation. Early rising as mindfulness mornings are a time of presence. There is a stillness that lingers in the air, undisturbed by traffic, noise, or news. For the elderly, waking early is not simply about routine. It is about presence. They may not meditate in a formal sense, but they do observe the dew on the leaves, the subtle change in seasons, the warmth of tea in their hands. They listen to birds, to wind, to their own breath. This quiet noticing becomes a form of prayer, a wordless gratitude for yet another day. Slowness is freedom. In younger years, morning is a rush, a race against the clock. But in old age, time is no longer an adversary. It becomes a companion. Waking early allows for slowness, and in slowness there is clarity. The pace is softer, breakfast is unrushed, movements are intentional, and within this new rhythm there is healing. In a fast world, waking early is a quiet rebellion. In old age, it becomes a peaceful surrender. Living according to inner light aging brings an intuitive understanding that the outer world is not the only one worth syncing with. There is also an inner light, a kind of personal sunrise that tells the elderly when to rise, when to rest, when to simply sit still. They begin to trust the signals of their body, the gentle fatigue that comes with sunset, the alertness at first light, the subtle shifts of mood that come with food, weather, movement, or memory. Living by natural rhythms is not just about time, it's about alignment. It's about letting go of what the world demands and instead tuning into what the body gently requests. This shift does not come suddenly. It arrives over years of burnout, of running too hard, too long, and eventually, the elderly choose a different path, one where mornings are not conquered but welcomed, a quiet return to simplicity. What waking early reveals is not just a change in sleep, but a change in philosophy. The elderly are no longer interested in filling every moment. They are content with being rather than doing. The morning is no longer a prelude to a busy day. It is the day's most meaningful chapter. In a world obsessed with productivity, this is an act of quiet wisdom, to do less and notice more, to rise with the sun, not to get ahead, but to be present, to be part of the rhythm of leaves opening, birds singing, and life beginning anew, not in grand announcements, but in tiny, almost invisible miracles. The elderly rise not to chase the world, but to greet it, one quiet breath at a time. 3. Eating simply and letting go of excess, the gentle turning toward simplicity. As we age, the body begins to whisper what it used to shout. It no longer craves indulgence the way it once did. Instead, it leans into lightness, into meals that are warm but simple, flavors that are gentle but nourishing. Gone are the days of feasting for the sake of fullness. The elderly no longer eat to impress or to indulge or to escape. They eat to live, and more importantly, they eat to live well. There is a profound shift that takes place in old age. Consumption becomes conscious. Simplicity becomes a choice, not born of limitation but of clarity. The older the soul, the lighter the appetite, not just for food, but for life's distractions. Why simplicity emerges with age. The body no longer tolerates excess. As the years accumulate, the body becomes more sensitive. Heavy meals bring discomfort. Overeating weighs not only the belly, but also the breath and the spirit. Elders begin to notice what younger bodies ignored. Digestive fire dims. The body, once robust in processing all kinds of food, now whispers, "Be gentle with me." This soft surrender is not weakness, it is wisdom. It's the body asking to be treated like an old friend, with care and attentiveness. Food becomes medicine, not entertainment. In youth, food is often an escape, used to soothe, to celebrate, to distract. In old age, food becomes a quiet ally. Elderly begin to see meals not as events, but as rituals. A bowl of rice, a few greens, a bit of broth. These are not signs of poverty, but of peace. They no longer ask, "What can I eat to feel full?" but rather, "What can I eat to feel well?" Food becomes less about pleasure and more about presence. Letting go of the desire to accumulate, eating simply is part of a broader shift in the soul, the desire to let go, not just of rich foods, but of many kinds of excess. Clothes never worn, plans never needed, possessions once prized but now untouched. There is a quiet liberation in this loosening. The elderly begin to shed the unnecessary. Not out of lack, but out of a growing need for space. Space in the body, space in the home, space in the heart. And so their meals reflect this letting go. Each plate becomes an expression of enough. To eat simply is to say, "This is sufficient. I am already full." The deeper nourishment of simplicity. There is a kind of nourishment that has nothing to do with calories. It lives in the calm of an unhurried meal. It lingers in the steam rising from a warm bowl. It breathes through the act of preparing food with both hands and full attention. Older adults often reclaim this. They begin to eat in silence, not because they are lonely, but because they are present. There is reverence in their chewing, in their pauses, in the way they sit down to eat without distraction. What used to be routine becomes sacred. Food, in its most humble form, begins to feed not just the body, but the soul. Choosing less, living more to eat, simply is to live more deeply. It is to acknowledge that joy is not in the abundance of flavors, but in the gratitude for each bite. It is to discover that the satisfaction of enough is greater than the pursuit of more. This is a wisdom that comes only with time, the kind of wisdom that whispers, "You do not need more, you need less. You need only what brings peace." And so the elderly begin to eat as they live, lightly, consciously, and with profound appreciation for what is already there. In the end, we are not fed by food alone, but by how gently we choose to take it in. 4. Walking slowly and being attentive to each step, the pace of the body, the rhythm of the soul. There comes a stage in life when every step becomes deliberate, not rushed, not careless, but steady, grounded, and full of quiet intention. In youth, walking is functional, fast, distracted, filled with thoughts of destinations and deadlines. But as the body ages, walking transforms. It becomes slower, yes, but also more mindful, more felt, more connected. For the elderly, walking is no longer about getting somewhere. It is about being somewhere. It is about noticing the small things that the hurried feet once missed, the sound of birdsong, the softness of light, the way the wind touches the skin. With age, walking becomes a form of listening, with the feet, with the breath, with the heart. Why walking slows with age, and why that's a gift. The body teaches humility as joints grow stiff and muscles tire more easily. The elderly no longer walk with urgency. They walk with humility, accepting the natural limits of the body, and in doing so discovering something more profound. Presence. Each step becomes an act of care. A small dialogue between the foot and the earth, a reminder that even the simplest movement deserves our full attention. In slowness, there is dignity. In slowness, there is grace. Walking as meditation. While younger minds chase after results, older hearts seek rhythm. For many elderly people, walking is the day's most honest meditation. They do not walk while scrolling or while talking or while planning 3 things ahead. They simply walk, one foot, then the other. And in that rhythm, thoughts quiet, the breath deepens, awareness expands. They begin to notice the breeze, the unevenness of the path, the warmth of the sun, the miracle of still being alive. There is no destination greater than that. Attention as devotion. To walk slowly is to pay attention, and to pay attention is to love. The elderly, perhaps without saying it, begin to fall in love again with the world in its ordinary beauty. The curve of a leaf, the cracks in the pavement, the scent of morning after rain. They do not walk to pass time. They walk to meet it, to accompany it gently as it passes through them. Youth rushes past life, age begins to walk with it, hand in hand. The ground beneath and the ground within walking slowly teaches something essential, that the outer ground reflects the inner one. As the elderly place one foot in front of the other, they are not only moving through space, they are moving through memory, through reflection, through a landscape of experience that now feels sacred. Each step says, I am still here. Each pause says, I do not need to hurry anymore. Each moment of stillness becomes an arrival, not a delay. In walking slowly, they reclaim something the world forgot, the beauty of not rushing, the dignity of moving in accordance with one's breath, the calm of aligning movement with mindfulness. Presence is the true arrival in the end. Walking slowly is not about mobility, it is about presence. It is about accepting where you are without longing to be elsewhere. It is about letting the body move without pressure and letting the soul arrive without force. The elderly no longer ask, how fast can I get there? Instead, they ask, how deeply can I be here? And that is the quiet miracle of aging. The slowing down of the body becomes the awakening of the heart. One slow step, taken with full attention, brings you closer to peace than 1,000 rushed ones. 5. Sitting alone without feeling lonely, the quiet companion. Within, in the silence of age, something beautiful begins to unfold. The ability to sit alone, not restlessly, not fearfully, but peacefully. When we are young, solitude often feels like absence. An emptiness to be filled, a silence to be broken, a gap to be covered by sound, people, or distractions. But with time, that same solitude becomes presence, full, rich, and softly glowing. Older people do not run from silence. They settle into it, they make tea for it. They allow it to sit beside them like an old friend. The elderly are not alone because no one is near. They are alone because they are finally enough for themselves. Why solitude shifts with age? Wow. Time teaches inner companionship. With the passing of years, many roles dissolve. Parent, worker, provider, achiever. Titles fade, responsibilities change. And in that shedding, a quiet question arises. Who am I? When I am simply with myself. At first, this can feel disorienting. But slowly, gradually, the elderly learn to befriend their own company. They no longer need constant conversation to feel connected. They no longer fear silence as a sign of emptiness. They begin to find within themselves a soft, steady presence, like a gentle fire that warms but never burns. This is the essence of inner companionship, not needing more to feel whole. Loneliness gives way to stillness. It's not that the elderly never feel lonely, but their relationship with aloneness transforms. They learn that being alone is not the same as being abandoned. It is not a punishment. It is a kind of resting place. In solitude, there is room to remember, to reflect, to let feelings rise and fall without judgment. There is room to breathe. There is no need to impress, to entertain, or to explain. In that spaciousness, peace often emerges, not loud, not grand, but quietly undeniable. The stillness of old age is not the absence of life, but the ripening of it. The wisdom found in silence, solitude becomes sacred, not because it is easy, but because it is honest. In the quiet, the elderly come face to face with their own story, with joys and regrets, with memories both bitter and sweet. And they learn not to run from any of it. They sit with the truth of their life the way one might sit beside a river, watching it pass, not clinging, not resisting, just witnessing. This witnessing becomes healing. This quiet embrace of self becomes wisdom. What once felt empty becomes deeply alive. The fullness of a quiet room. You might find an elderly person sitting alone by a window, under a tree, on a bench, and think they are doing nothing. But that is a misunderstanding. They are feeling the sunlight on their skin, listening to the clock tick, watching the dust float in the air. They are touching life not with their hands, but with their heart. There is no rush, no fear of missing out, no urgency to be elsewhere. They have arrived right here in this room, in this moment, in this breath, and in that arrival, they find more than company. They find contentment. True peace is not found in the presence of others, but in the presence of yourself. To be alone and not lonely. This is perhaps one of the deepest gifts of aging. To sit in a room by yourself without a phone, without a plan, without the ache for someone else, and to feel quietly, unmistakably whole. It is a lesson that youth often overlooks, but old age remembers. That wholeness does not come from the outside in, but from the inside out. And so the elderly sit, not because they have nowhere to go, but because they have already arrived. Not because they are forgotten, but because they have remembered what matters most. To be alone without feeling lonely is not the end of something. It is the flowering of something ancient, something tender, something deeply human. This concludes part 5 and the full reflection on 5 habits formed in old age. Welcome to Wisdom Flow, where the quiet whispers of life unfold into deeper understanding. Today we embark on a journey through the golden years, exploring 5 transformative habits that shape the elderly. These habits aren't just physical routines, they are reflections of a soul that has learned to listen, to slow down, and to embrace the present moment with grace and presence. Whether it's waking early with the sunrise or finding peace in solitude, these habits offer profound lessons for all of us regardless of age. So take a deep breath, settle into the stillness and join us as we explore these beautiful shifts in the flow of life. As we wrap up today's journey, we hope that these insights into the habits formed with age have inspired you to reflect on your own life and the way you approach each day. The wisdom that comes with time is not just something to be admired, it's something to be lived. If you've enjoyed this reflection, be sure to subscribe to Wisdom Flow for more deep dives into the timeless lessons of life. Don't forget to like, comment, and share with anyone who may need a reminder that wisdom grows with every moment, and that it's never too early to start living it. Thank you for joining us. Until next time, may your flow of wisdom be ever steady and ever deep. Färdig till föras i sin återhäck, kära